All right, friends, we are wrapping up our online Bible study in the book of Revelation. Just 3 days left, and today we are in the third to last chapter, Revelation chapter 20. If Revelation chapter 20 is going to make sense, this third to the last chapter in the Bible, we need to go back to the third chapter in the Bible. There are big parallels here. One of the things you may have heard us say before, not in this study, but in previous studies, is that there are definite, very clear parallels, and we'll talk about in the next couple of days, between Genesis chapter 1 and 2 and Revelation 21 and 22. In Genesis 1 and 2, things are great, the way they're supposed to be. You get all the way to the end of the Bible, things are great again, the way they're supposed to be. In the middle, things are kind of a mess. And I like it makes sense of the way that our world is. Our world is beautiful and wonderful in so many ways, but it's so clearly broken, it's so clearly flawed. And what we believe is that one day all of that's getting put back together. And when we get to 21 and 22, we'll get what is revealed to John about what that's like. But we're not quite there yet. Okay, chapter 20, broadly speaking, we cannot talk about all of this. Broadly speaking, three big moves. You've got the Millennium in 1 through 6. And then you've got Satan returning. We'll talk about where he is returning from in just a second, in 7 through 10. And then you've got this judgment where ultimately even death is defeated in 11 through 15. So what is going on here? Okay, this whole idea of the millennium. For some people, it's very important that it is a literal 1,000-year period. For some people, find that it's more of a metaphorical thing. If you're not caught up in that debate, don't get caught up in that debate. But I just want to acknowledge that. For some people, it's important that it be a literal 1,000-year period. But what is happening in that when you hear people talk about the millennium? What is that about? Here's the thing. Lots of people by this point, when the revelation is revealed to John, have been martyred. And many more people will be martyred. What happens in the millennium, it is when Satan is bound, no longer able to work his trickery on earth. And during that period when he is bound, before anything else happens, the martyrs, those who have given their life to witness to Jesus, they are raised. And during that time, here in verse 6, they will be priests of God and of Christ, and they will reign with him for 1,000 years. So it's this idea of the martyrs being vindicated. And they're reigning with God and with Christ for this period of time. What then happens is that Satan, who has been bound, is allowed to come back. Why is it that he's allowed to come back? What some scholars have suggested that I really like is that it's like he's given one more chance. Like give it your best shot. And you can see there in 7 through 10, he does give it his best shot. I mean, again, these are all images, right, that help us to understand deeper truths. It's like God is saying, even like, give me your best. And even with your best, it's not enough. And then finally you get to the end. And again, there's more in there than we can deal with, but the punchline is that even death is defeated. So even the ultimate enemy that is hanging over us, the ultimate fear, the ultimate unknown of death, even that is defeated. There is no more even threat of death. And those things have to happen before we get to 21 and 22, which, again, others will talk about the next couple of days. But these things have to happen. The martyrs are vindicated. Satan is allowed the opportunity to give it his best. And then even death is defeated. So before we can get back to the way things are supposed to be, those things have to happen. Do you see some parallels here? Go back to the beginning. Go back to Genesis 1 through 3. What happens when we get to the beginning of Genesis 3, which parallels Revelation 20? What happens? Well, things have been going well for a while. Adam and Eve, who represent all of humanity, they have been reigning over the garden. That's what their task has been, to oversee it. They've been reigning over it with God, God's presence. They've been reigning over it. Then what happens? Well, Satan, envisioned as the serpent, enters the picture. He seeks to deceive them. And the question becomes, in that fleeting moment in Genesis 3 before we find out the answer, is will they be deceived? And of course they are. And when they are, it has catastrophic consequences. Do you see the parallels here? In the beginning here of this chapter, a part of humanity with the martyrs are reigning over creation with God, just like Adam and Eve were. Then what happens? The serpent, often depicted in Revelation as a dragon. It's the same story, but bigger. More people. A dragon and not just a serpent, here just called Satan, re-enters the picture, is given his opportunity to give it his best. And for a fleeting moment, before we find out the answer, we have to ask, are they going to be deceived the way that Adam and Eve were? And of course they're not. And Satan, even giving it his best, is defeated. Of course, Adam and Eve were told, if you do this, you will surely die. Now, God, in his infinite mercy and grace, they don't die. But there is still that threat of death, not like a wag of it, but the reality of death that hangs over them, because they do die eventually. Here, even death is undone. Adam and Eve, the martyrs, reigning with God. The evil one coming and seeking to deceive them. Adam and Eve falling prey to that, and ultimately, after a period of time, dying. The martyrs not falling prey to that, and even death ultimately being defeated. And it is through God's grace, God's mercy, who wins the victory. But it is also the martyrs who are willing to be witnesses to God up to the point of death, and then who are willing to not be deceived by the evil one, who are a part of God winning over that victory. So then for us, I mean, it's going longer than I expected, but then for us, the question is how are we not only inspired by that today, but how are we changed by that? To recognize that one day all will be made well, but that we can live in light of that day today, seeking to live in the truth, to not be deceived by the lies, to recognize that the voice of the serpent, the voice of the dragon, seeks to deceive us today, to say, no. Insofar as I am able to, I am going to root myself in the truth, which means turning my eyes back to this, which means turning my eyes towards conversations with people who can speak the truth to me. It means turning my knees to the ground in prayer, looking away from the lies and towards the truth is the way that we fight the battle today. The battle that we know is ultimately won by Jesus. But that today we get to be a part of that winning team. All right, 21 and 22 are a lot of fun. I didn't get assigned those for obvious reasons. I only get stuff like death, dying. So I'm just kidding. Next couple days, keep with your reading. 21, 22 are so inspiring. God bless you, friends. And this is it for me. So I'll see you next time that I'm involved with it, which will be our next Bible reading plan. We'll be letting you know what that is at some point coming up. God bless you.